We all know there's just a few business days left until the government shuts down. The crisis, though, has been predictable. The Republican leaders are walking us right into another shutdown, another self-created crisis. It's not clear they have a plan to avoid a shutdown. Instead, they want to have a political fight on Iran and women's health. But this is the hallmark of this Republican Congress. Create an unnecessary manufactured crisis, then march to the edge of another cliff, and then wait for the next cliff to show up. In 2013, they manufactured a crisis, but they really shut down the government then. Early this year, they manufactured a crisis over Homeland Security and came within hours of a government shutdown again. So it's really hard to comprehend what the plan is. In June, Republicans manufactured a crisis over the Patriot Act. Again, that program was actually shut down. Now, by wasting the Senate's time on repeat votes, even when the Senate has already spoken, Republican leaders manufacture another unnecessary crisis. Right now, there's no budget votes in sight. We have 6 days, 7 days, until the legislative days are all gone. By the time the Republican leaders schedule the vote, the United States will be on the edge of another Republican government shutdown. We do not know how long we are going to have to wait, but it's not going to be very long until we have the debt ceiling that has to be raised. But there's no need for a crisis. We've seen this coming for months, and unless the Republicans are legislatively blind, they should have seen it too. We can pass a clean bill to fund the government today. All we need is for the Republicans to say yes. Senator Durbin.
Make no mistake, the issue on the floor of the Senate is no longer the Iran agreement. That has been an issue that has been voted on twice with exactly the same vote. What we know now is that every member of the United States Senate has declared their position publicly for weeks. After studying this matter for 8 weeks, members have made their decisions clear, and they voted on the floor. So why does Senator McConnell hang on? Why did he make us re-vote again last night and now wants another vote tomorrow? He wants to drag this out as long as possible. It's no longer about the merits of the agreement. It's about the politics of the agreement. This is an effort by Senator McConnell to try to make political points with some groups and people around America. But I think anyone who's following this debate honestly knows that we have had a fulsome debate, plenty of time to review this. No one is hiding their position. We know where we stand. It's time to move on. And I might also add, this notion of making the political prisoners in Iran part of the new Republican strategy is something I wish Senator McConnell had thought about a little bit. This is not the right thing to do. We want to bring these detainees and prisoners home as quickly as possible. And putting them in the middle of this political debate here, I don't believe is helpful at all. Let me also add, too, as he wastes time on the floor of the Senate going through votes over and over again where we know the outcome, we're not putting time in where we should be, making sure that we keep this government open. And don't believe for a minute this is a vacant threat about a government shutdown. We've seen that movie, Ted Cruz in the starring role, just a couple years ago. My guess is they're off to do it again. The wannabe presidential candidates and those people in the Republican caucus are looking for another government shutdown over another reason. Well, if they do that, it'll remind people that when the Republicans are in charge in Congress, they can't make this train run on time. We've got to make sure that we start dedicating the remaining time this month to honest budget negotiations, something we've called for from this podium since June. Check the record, I'm sure you keep it. We started asking in June for these negotiations, and now 14 calendar days and 7 days away from a government shutdown. It's a clear declaration of what's happened with the Republican leadership here in Congress.
Senator Schumer?
Well, there's an old saying, never put off until tomorrow what you can accomplish today, but that is not the motto of the Republican leaders in Congress. With just 2 short weeks to go, Republicans are twiddling their thumbs as we careen closer and closer and closer to a government shutdown. Instead of listening to the overwhelming majority of Democrats and Republicans across the country, Republican leaders are holding listening sessions to heed the calls of the hard right of their party. Republican leaders are governing scared, looking back over their right shoulder to find out what the most strident voices in their caucus want, instead of listening to the overwhelming majority of Americans who oppose a government shutdown. It's clear that the American people want us to sit down and negotiate a budget that protects our national and economic security, not shoot ourselves in the foot with a government shutdown over Planned Parenthood. The negotiations ahead will be hard, but we need to pass a bill to keep the government open right now so we can get down to work on a budget agreement. But there is some good news here. The good news, more and more Republicans are warming to the kind of tax changes we need to create revenue to fund the budget agreement. Donald Trump and Jeb Bush support closing the carried interest loophole, ending subsidies for oil and gas companies, tackling inversions, and we Democrats agree. If closing these loopholes are good enough for Donald Trump and Jeb Bush, it ought to be good enough for the Republicans in Congress. While the various GOP candidates' tax plans on the whole are the wrong plans for the country, their plans to close the carried interest loophole, end subsidies to big oil, and tackle inversions could break the logjam over the budget and help us reach an agreement. I would strongly urge our Republican leaders to take a look at those aspects of the plan and embrace them. If they do, they'll find loads of Democratic support and a much easier path to the budget deal that both parties seek. But Republicans have to crawl before they can walk. That means passing a clean CR as soon as possible, not wasting more time with needless showvotes. And one other thing I'd like to say, I heard that Senator McConnell mentioned that he would bring the Zadroga bill to the floor in his gathering. That is great news at last, because if Congress can't come together and help the first responders who are ill because they rushed to the towers, then we may as well forget this place altogether. So this is really a glimmer, a very bright glimmer of hope on something so important to thousands who are dying of cancers and other diseases.
Senator Murray.
Well, this is a good day for Jon Stewart to be here on Capitol Hill. We have 14 total days left until another Republican shutdown, far fewer actual legislative days, and we have literally nothing from them about how they plan to avoid a shutdown. What are Republicans talking about instead? What is Majority Leader Mitch McConnell planning to bring to the floor next? Their old go-to favorite issue, women's health care. The Republican rule of thumb seems to be, if you don't know what else to do, go after women's health care. Now that might help them to distract their extreme base, but it is terrible for our country, and we are not going to stand for it. For months, we've been asking Republicans to work with us on another bipartisan budget deal, and they've refused. For months, we have been saying there is no need to wait until the last minute. No need for the countdown clocks and the drama, and they've refused. So now we have another round of brinksmanship, another round of uncertainty, another round of pandering to the Tea Party, and a possible shutdown 2 weeks away. So what is the Republican plan here? Because one thing is for sure, a vote on restricting women's constitutionally guaranteed right doesn't keep the government open. We all know the only real path forward is the path we took in 2013, bipartisan negotiations and a bipartisan deal. So when and how are Republicans going to come to the table so we can do that? Majority Leader McConnell likes to say there's no education in the second kick of a mule. But those hooves are getting closer every single day, and it's long past time for them to start moving. Jon Stewart used to end his shows with a moment of zen. Let's hope this latest Republican episode ends that way too.
Leader Reid, just a few minutes ago when Leader McConnell was here, several of you talked about Planned Parenthood and women's health. McConnell says that he wants to try to decouple that. He says there's no way to, defund Planned Parenthood and keep the government open. I mean, on its face, that would sound like encouraging things to you.
Well, I would hope the Republicans have their act together more than they did on the Iran thing. The House was doing one thing, they were doing something else over here. All I know, they better get their act together pretty quickly, because they have 30 or 40 House members who've written a letter to Boehner, Republicans, saying we will not vote for any funding bill unless Planned Parenthood is out of it. So we're not making this stuff up. I mean, that's what they're saying. We have a number of people over here who are Republican senators. A couple of them are running for president. They're saying we will not agree to any funding bill unless Planned Parenthood is defunded. So he's the one that needs to work it out. If he can work it out, more power to him. We're not begging for a vote on Planned Parenthood, that's for sure. We're on the other side.
Senator Reid, the fast-track 20-week abortion ban bill that's coming up next week. Why do you oppose it, and should there be any limits on when an abortion can be performed?
First of all, understand that this is just a show vote. The only reason he's doing this, he knows it's going to lose. He knows it's going to lose. He's doing it for reasons I'm not sure that anyone appreciates, but he is doing it because the Pope's coming here. The Pope has spoken out on issues, most of which I agree with him. But if you dissect this bill they have, no reasonable person could vote for this. It would force a kid, before they could go to the legal authorities, police for example, that's where they'd have to go first. They couldn't go to their healthcare provider. It's a bad bill, and I can't imagine anyone wanting to vote for it.
So you're not willing to say whether there should be limits on when an abortion?
The question's on this bill, and the bill is going nowhere.
What about the
Pardon me?
On the CR, Leader Pelosi in the House said that one of her big issues that she'd like to see resolved before bringing a vote for CR, she'd like to see top-line numbers set for an eventual budget deal. Do you have any non-negotiable things you'd like to see happen beforehand, or any poison pills that you
I'm going to the White House tomorrow with Leader Pelosi, and we'll talk to the president about this. I think the point is this. We believe there should be certain things that are apparent. Number one, without talking about top line, bottom line, defense and non-defense should be parallel. We should treat them both the same. We need to get rid of these vexatious writers. Planned Parenthood is one, abortion is the other. We need to make sure that if we're going to have a short-term CR, it be short-term, because we have this perfect storm approaching us. We have the debt ceiling, we have tax extenders, we have all kinds of things that are going to come due about the same time. We shouldn't have a multitude of these fights. We should get it done at one time.
Leader Reid, on the CR, should the Senate act first, or should it wait until the House to act? And for Democrats to vote for a clean CR, would you want to see some conditions like setting up a budget summit, a guarantee of that?
We have done everything except beg the Republican leadership for a summit. Any time of negotiations, we're willing to do that. And I don't care where it starts. Traditionally, we've always gotten the bill from the House first, and that's probably the best thing to do.
Senator Reid, does that CR need to have the first responders extension in it?
Yes.
Will you all vote against it if it doesn't?
Well, it should be there, and it's my understanding McConnell said that he wants it. So if he wants it, it would be easy to do. All I know is we listened to one of the firefighters today. A big, strong man. He's got stage 4 cancer. He walks with a cane, and he has to get an MRI, full body scan every month. His health insurance doesn't pay for that. That's why this program is important. That's one of thousands of people that have these really strange diseases as a result of working on, they called it the dump. Thank you, everybody.